The gala dinner unfolded with elegance, crystal glasses clinking softly, discreet laughter mingling with the tinkle of silverware. But a single misstep shattered the polished facade. Elena, a maid, stumbled while serving the main course, and a glass of wine fell, lightly splashing the shoes of Gustavo, one of the country's most powerful businessmen. He rose with disproportionate fury, as if the accident were an unforgivable personal affront. "Are you stupid, or what? All you have to do is serve food, and you can't even do that right," he bellowed, his voice harsh, drawing every eye in the room. Elena, trembling, lowered her head and mumbled an apology, but Gustavo wasn't done. This man, accustomed to giving orders and being revered, seemed to feed on fear. "I'll teach you how to serve food," he roared, grabbing the bowl of spaghetti from his plate and raising it high. In that instant, the silence grew heavy. No one moved. Everyone seemed frozen, and then he did it. He dumped the bowl's contents over Elena's head, as if she were trash. Spaghetti hung grotesquely from her hair, sauce dripping down her face and staining her white uniform. A woman in black at the back of the room clutched her chest in horror. Her name was Camila. Though no one knew it then, her reaction wasn't just outrage. She knew Elena and her story. Elena didn't cry, didn't speak, only closed her eyes for a moment, lips pressed tight, then opened them with a different expression, not humiliation, but dignity. Gustavo glared at her with contempt. "Now you get it, don't you? You're a servant. You have no voice here. Your job is to obey." His arrogance-laced speech silenced even the most frivolous in the room. The other guests didn't know whether to intervene or maintain appearances. No one spoke. Only Camila rose from her chair, doing nothing yet, but watching every move with intensity. Hours earlier, Elena had arrived at the event hoping for a quiet shift. She worked tirelessly to pay for her mother's terminal illness treatment. Every shift was a battle against exhaustion and disdain, but she endured because she needed the money. Gustavo knew none of this. To him, Elena was just another shadow among the decor and waitstaff. That's why he didn't hesitate to make her a scapegoat when a failed business deal left him in a foul mood that afternoon. Camila knew Elena's story not as a friend, but because she had thoroughly investigated every employee at the venue. She was the company's internal auditor, sent by the board to discreetly observe Gustavo's behavior outside the corporate sphere. Until that moment, she'd had no substantial reason to act. The public humiliation she just witnessed would change everything. Though Gustavo didn't know it yet, he was minutes away from facing the harshest consequences of his life. Elena stood firm, not wiping her face or brushing off the spaghetti, and spoke a single sentence that chilled the room even more. "Thank you for reminding me that even in the most luxurious places, humanity can be the rarest thing." Gustavo let out a sarcastic laugh and returned to his seat as if nothing had happened. Some followed with nervous chuckles, trying to resume the evening, but the tension in the air wouldn't dissipate. Camila kept her eyes fixed on him. She'd seen enough. Minutes later, Elena was pulled from service and taken to the kitchen. A supervisor asked her to leave to avoid further trouble. She complied without protest, but not before casting one last glance at the dining hall, where Gustavo, smug, toasted with his colleagues as if the humiliation were just another spectacle of the night. Camila quietly rose from her seat and left the room, phone in hand, making an urgent call to the executive board's director. What Gustavo didn't know was that every word, every cruel gesture, had been recorded by a security camera installed that day at Camila's request. What awaited him wasn't physical punishment, but something far more devastating for a man like him: the public collapse of his image, power, and pride. Just when he thought he'd won, the dining hall doors swung open again, and everything changed. Gustavo turned his head in annoyance as the doors burst open. Everyone else turned too, startled by the interruption, but his sneer morphed into confusion when he saw Camila stride in, flanked by two suited men wearing board member badges. Whispers grew in the room, but no one dared speak loudly. Gustavo stood, forcing a tense smile. "Camila, this isn't the time or place for an inspection," he said, trying to keep control. She didn't respond. One of the men handed him a sealed envelope. Gustavo opened it with trembling hands, his eyes darting across the lines of the document until his face drained of color. Elena still hadn't returned to the hall. She sat in a corner of the staff dressing room, clothes still stained, eyes dry from holding back tears. She felt broken inside, not from the spaghetti or the shouting, but from the certainty that, despite giving everything, she was still treated as less. A supervisor burst in, telling her to clean up and return to the hall. "Camila asked for you. I don't know why, but it seems important." Elena hesitated for a moment. Her instinct screamed not to go back, but something inside, maybe pride, maybe hope, pushed her to stand. When Elena reappeared, every eye turned to her. This time, there were no laughs or jeers. Gustavo, seeing her, muttered through gritted teeth, "You again." "Get out before," but Camila cut him off, her voice ringing with authority. "Silence, Gustavo." The room tensed. It was the first time anyone had spoken to him like that in front of everyone. "We've seen the video of your behavior, not just the assault, but your misogynistic and classist remarks all night. There's enough evidence for immediate disciplinary action." Gustavo tried to laugh, but no one joined him. His arrogance began to crack. "You can't do this to me here, in front of everyone," he stammered, voice shaking. "Yes, I can," Camila replied. "Because this is exactly where you humiliated a woman just doing her job. And we all saw it." She turned to the guests. "Elena is an exemplary worker with years of service. What you witnessed wasn't a social blunder, it was abuse of power." Gustavo froze. He searched for support in the crowd, but no one dared defend him. Those who had laughed at his jokes now looked away, afraid of being implicated. The man who thought himself untouchable was starting to stand alone. One of the executives approached and asked for his company badge. Gustavo resisted, but Camila added, "If you don't cooperate, this goes public. There are media waiting outside." "I was trying to handle this discreetly." For the first time in years, Gustavo felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Real fear. Fear of falling. With no choice, he lowered his head, pulled out his badge, and placed it on the table. Then, in a gesture no one could have imagined minutes earlier, he turned to Elena and knelt. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. I was frustrated." It wasn't personal, but his words carried no weight, born not from remorse, but from panic. Elena looked at him in silence. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The power had shifted, and she was no longer in his shadow. Camila stepped forward and gently took Elena's hand. "Now you decide, Elena. What do we do with him?" Elena took a deep breath, looking at Gustavo's desperate face. "I don't want revenge, just justice. Let him pay like anyone else for what he did." Camila nodded. "Then he will. Tomorrow, his dismissal will be announced publicly, and the company will pursue legal action for misconduct." Gustavo closed his eyes, defeated. The entire room stood and began to applaud, not for Camila or the punishment, but for Elena, for enduring so much, for not breaking, for not stooping to her aggressor's level. Elena, with tears held back, gave a faint smile. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen, not as a maid, not as a shadow, but as a woman with value, dignity, and strength. Camila hugged her. No one knew it, but that embrace sealed more than a difficult night. It marked the start of a transformation. Days later, Elena received an offer to join the company's welfare and labor rights department, promoted by Camila herself. She accepted without hesitation. She didn't want vengeance. She wanted to ensure no other woman endured the same. Meanwhile, Gustavo faced a cascade of consequences. His image shattered, his circle of trust reduced to ashes, and hardest of all, the realization of what his arrogance had cost him. Sometimes, only when you're on the ground do you begin to see the humanity in others. You never know who's behind the mask. Appearances can deceive, but respect and dignity must always be non-negotiable.